Hi, hello, and welcome into That Sounds Gay, a podcast for queer people and people who enjoy them. My name is Jer, and I am a homosexual who gives opinions that no one asked for. And that's what we do here at this podcast. I share a lot of my opinions that no one is asking for. Welcome in for those of you who are watching on YouTube. This is the first visual opener that I'm doing for my podcast. For everyone that's listening on Apple, Spotify, I'm going to start doing a visual opener that it's just going to be me doing the exact same thing you're already listening to. And I'm going to chat with Jess and with Jasmine and see if they'd be interested in also doing a video portion. So maybe the whole podcast could be visual as well. So I'm going to see how they feel about doing something like that. For now, it'll just be the intros, and then for those of you who are watching here on YouTube, you can listen to the rest if you are enjoying it. And for those of you who are on Spotify and Apple, if you want to maybe watch and get a little visual stimuli, you can do that. But welcome in. Hope your week has been nice. Let's talk about condoms. That is something that I find myself talking about a lot lately, and I don't know why this has been coming up so much, especially in relation to a lot of younger people who don't understand how important condoms are because they just simply never got the right education about them. They don't understand how critical they are for their own sexual health. They don't understand how important they are for taking care of their bodies and their wellness. There are a lot of people who have been convinced by people that condoms are not important. And I want to talk about one of the most imbecilic phrases that I've ever heard of in my life that continues to provide me great amounts of brain cell loss. And that is raw is law. And I want to know who initiated this phrase because I just need to know who failed them. This is such an imbecilic phrase, and it drives me batty every single time. It's this crock of garbage that we have been diluted into believing that it feels better, which no, it doesn't. It doesn't. Your penis is used to your dry grip and some unscented lotion. Anything is going to feel better than that. And the person that you are going to be entering, their hole is probably going to be unsatisfied when you're done, whether you wore a condom or not. And so it doesn't feel different for them. I know some people say it's like having sex with a plastic bag on, and I personally have never ever felt that way. I've never noticed it. I know plenty of people who say they've never noticed it. I guess it depends on the amount of looseness of the hole that you're entering. But there's this idea that it just feels better knowing that you can take it off. And maybe there's a little more intimacy, but it feels the same. And people have lied several times to, I'm going to say broadly, the bottom community, that they don't need to wear condoms because they get to feel it all. And I think there's something that is like sort of primally instinctual about finishing inside someone. And I understand that. I get it. I really do. There is something that goes into our DNA, right? But it feels the same whether you're wearing a condom or not. And I don't appreciate that people have been lied to so many times that they believe this lie. They believe it. So let's talk about why you should wear condoms. Well, one, your sexual health is something that you theoretically should take as seriously as you would your physical health. You know, when you go in for checkups and you are making sure that you're not getting sick, right? You would maybe get a flu shot if you do that, or you'd keep up on your medicine regimen. Maybe you do like a daily vitamin because you know that you're not really getting all the supplements you need so that you're not getting sick. You're drinking water properly. You're taking care of those things. It's just as important as your mental health, that you're doing little wellness check-ins, understanding what your personal triggers are so that you are not overstimulating yourself. You're not putting yourself in a position that is uncomfortable for you, right? You're taking care of your brain, and your sexual health is just as important, that you wrap up and that you are protecting yourself from STIs, which STIs are not the end of the world. I had one near the end of last year, and it was not my most favorite experience in the world. I don't ever want to have one again, but I know that it could happen. There's always the possibility, whether you're doing oral or actual penetrative, there's always a possibility of getting an STI. And that's not the end of the world. Even if something like HIV happens, that's not the end of the world. There's plenty of options and treatments out there, but the goal would be to do your best to not get an STI. The goal would be not to get sick so bad that you have to go to the hospital to deal with it, that you can't do an at-home remedy, because an STI is different than getting a UTI, which you can fully, absolutely get, even if you have a penis. And I think that's a big misconception, that people with penises can't get them, but you absolutely can get an STI, or a UTI. Usually those can kind of clear up on their own, depending on how severe it is. There's some over-the-counter things that you can take. Every once in a while, you'll need to go in, right? But, like, that's something you can take care of. If you get, like, the flu, you can take care of that at home. But the goal would be not to have it escalate to a place where you need to go into a hospital to get an injection of some kind, or go to a clinic to get an injection so that you can fight off what is inside your body that is not supposed to be there. And that's the same thing with an STI. That would be the same thing for HIV. It would be similar if, like, you let your mental health diminish and you needed to get on medication knowing that you had certain triggers. And meds are important. These are kind of apples and peanut butter that I'm comparing to, but I'm just kind of drawing some wide lines between these just to really impact that your sexual health is just as important as these other things, these other aspects of your body, that you would go to a physician to get proper care if you need it. And condoms are important, especially for those of us like myself who are going out and meeting up with people whose names we don't even know, who we will meet up with for a one time, forget about each other, never remember our names or what the encounter was, and dip, right? If we don't know somebody's name, we don't know any of their personal info, we know nothing about them, we can't really trust that they've got the best intentions with anything else. We just kind of have to treat it full stranger danger. And again, not that STIs are the end of the world, but you just never know when you don't know anything about somebody, and you want to be careful. You want to be taking care of yourself. And this is not to slut shame, because again, I have sex all the time with people whose names I don't know. But because of that aspect, I wrap up. My cat is playing with a toy in the background. I don't know if you can hear him. I record all these in my home, so every once in a while they go ham, and I just fed them too, so they're especially a little feisty right now. And so you want to be careful about that. You want to protect yourself in the same way that you theoretically would mask if you know that you're going to a big event that potentially you could get COVID from, and you know you live with people that are prone to getting sick, so you want to mask up and take care of yourself. So it's the same thing. If you know that you're having multiple partners, and you know that you're going to be having lots and lots of sex over a period of time, you want to protect yourself and those people, just so that there aren't these little mini outbreaks that are happening in our community. And something that has gotten lost in our community over the last decade or so, with the rise of PrEP, with the rise of DoxyPep, with the rise of a lot of our queer elders passing by various reasons, is we've lost this sort of cultural passing down of information of the AIDS crisis and what happened and what impact our community experienced because of that, and how many people we lost because of unsafe sexual health practices. And we already know that the government doesn't care about us as queer people. The government does not care about people with uteruses. So the last thing that's on their mind is taking care of populations who are prone to having results of having sex, such as pregnancy, such as STIs. We know that they don't care about us as a community. So we have to advocate for ourselves first, because they're not looking out for us. So we have to be the first line of defense to make sure we're taking care of ourselves. Because if an outbreak of some kind happened, like how it did in the 80s, we know that they would leave us to the side of the road and let whatever happens. And that is why you've always got to advocate first, because we're, especially in the States here, we're kind of alone. I can't speak to other countries, but here we are on our own as far as our health is concerned. And that's broad. That's completely broad. So preventing little mini outbreaks to go into something bigger is definitely something that we need to be taking care of, and we need to be more educational with our peers about regular testing. If people are going to practice unsafe sex, they got to test regularly every 3 to 6 months, depending on how many sexual partners you're having. Planned Parenthood has some really great options. You can test for STIs if you have health insurance. You can go to your primary caregiver and just ask for health screening, sexual health screening, and they'll do that very quickly and easily for you. Typically, they'll draw some blood. It's just like a little tiny prick, like what people that take insulin shots would need to do. It's just the smallest little prick on your finger. For other STIs, they'll usually test your urine. If they really need a lot of blood, then maybe they'll draw some from your arm, depending on what you need. They do rapid tests for HIV, and I believe they'll do blood tests for gonorrhea, chlamydia, other STIs, and then the urine one kind of is the same. 2 different things that they can test the cultures, compare them to each other, see if you've got anything they need to be concerned about. And then treatment is super easy. If you go to Planned Parenthood, they'll give you something right then and there. If you're already experiencing symptoms, you can go to your primary caregiver and they will help you out with that as well. So we really need to be pushing safe testing. And I think the whole conversation about removing condoms is a conversation that needs to happen between 2 people who feel really comfortable doing so. And I think sometimes we get into these scenarios where we find somebody who we really like and we really want to sleep with them. We don't really care about who they are, but we really want to sleep with them, like, badly. And they don't want condoms, but we do. And we feel like we can't advocate for ourselves and say that we want them and that we demand them, because we really want to sleep with this person, and if they don't do condoms, we won't sleep with them. And so we feel like this pressure, like, well, I got to do it, and I have to do it, because, like, the chance may never come. There are 1 billion men in the world, and there will always be somebody else to sleep with. And if someone doesn't respect your desire to take your sexual health seriously, they are not a partner worth investing any amount of time into. And that is just my personal opinion. I think that more people should follow along with this ideology, because I see these little mini outbreaks happen in the community all the time. And I see people that almost wear getting STIs like a badge of honor. Like, people will say, oh, I've had chlamydia 15 times in the last couple years. I've had gonorrhea like 20 plus times. And for me, that's not really like something that I would be loudly announcing. For me, I would be like saying like, oh, I purposefully try to get the flu every year, when there's ways to prevent getting STIs that are so clear and present. And that's just wrapping up and being safe, because there are plenty of people who don't test. who are too stigmatized about testing, have no idea you should test, and don't pay attention to their bodies. So if you get an STI and you infect someone else who doesn't know and they let that go untreated for a really long time, and if maybe they never do, you're putting their health at significant risk because they don't know any better about testing. And I know someone personally who did not get tested for like almost 3 years and had something sitting around for a long time, and the doctors were very concerned about their long-term health and the effects on them because of how long they had this STI that was untreated, and all their partners they had to contact over the last several years to let them know that they had this infection, that all these people then had to go and test and treat and take care of themselves. And it's super socially irresponsible to not promote safe sex practices and then to not tell your partners that you also don't practice safe sex with other people. And this is, again, not to shame anybody, because, again, I'm a hoe. I love sex. I enjoy it a lot. But I'm safe with the people that I don't know. And I will not use protection with people that I trust and people that I have a rapport with. And that's how it should be, in my opinion, is making sure you have a trust with someone before you remove that protection. So let's talk about some brands really quick. And this is not like a sponsored section at all, I promise. So we kind of got the big brands. You know, you've got Trojan, which has a name because it's good and it's effective, but it's a little on the pricier side. You've got brands like Durex, which I'm a big fan of. Those are super effective too. They're pretty comparable, in my opinion, to Trojan brand. There's a brand that I got from Planned Parenthood. I don't know what brand it is, but it was super comfortable. And the person that I used it with really enjoyed it too. They had no problems. I still have like a whole bag. You can get condoms, I believe, for free at Planned Parenthood. I think you just go in and ask. But if you're going to go and buy condoms from the shop, do some research into what you need. Make sure you get the right size. They come in multiple sizes for a reason. Some people say that condoms are uncomfortable because they're too tight. And I would say that's a sizing issue, because if you are getting a size that's too small, of course it's going to be uncomfortable. But the point is that it's tight. The point is so that your juices do not get out of that condom and interact with somebody else's body in a way that was not meant to. Because if they get out of the condom, what was the point in wearing it in the first place? If you just don't, it doesn't even have its purpose, right? Like, it's supposed to be tight. That's the whole reason why you're wearing one, is to keep everything in and to not interact with each other. So I would say that's a sizing issue if people say that they're too tight for them, because there's plenty of sizes, and there are plenty of videos of, I've seen girls on TikTok take one of the bigger condom sizes, one of the bigger Trojans, and put it on like a stocking, and it stretches all the way up to their knee, because those things get so big. They stretch, and they're meant to adapt to your body. So if you've got an above average piece of meat that you are needing to accommodate, that condom is going to stretch with you. You just need to leave it on. It's going to be uncomfortable right away. It's like putting on a brand new pair of socks, you know? It's uncomfortable at first, but then it becomes less uncomfortable, and it becomes like you're not even wearing it. You hardly even notice it. Or at least that's what the thought should be. There's a lot of different brands that you also need to keep an eye out on. What I usually do is I will sort of default to whoever my partner is, because if they have a preference, they might have those condoms already there that they are ready to use. But some people have allergies to certain condoms, so they need different types available for them. And so usually I'll default to the other person and see if they have some that they prefer. Otherwise, I'll bring my own if they don't have any, or they don't care what kind is used. Then I know that the ones that I have work for me, and then if we have a problem later, we can work it out there. But that's very important to have those conversations ahead of time. Make sure that you're both on the same page about allergies to certain condoms. And kind of last thing on the branding thing is, if you go to the shop and you buy some, don't feel nervous or uncomfortable or awkward at all. It can sometimes feel like, well, I can't buy condoms because they're going to look at me, all the other people in the shop, and the person who's cashiering, they're going to judge me for buying condoms. And I guarantee you that the cashiers at the shops don't give a crap about the fact that you're buying condoms and lube, whatever you're buying at the shop. They are just trying to get their paycheck, and they're trying to go home. They don't give a crap if you're buying condoms or not. At best, they might think, getting lucky. Wish I had some time off to get lucky tonight. But they're probably not thinking anything more than that. They're not judging you. Nobody around you is judging you. And I've been in the condom aisle before, and I've seen people like trying not to make eye contact and look away. And it's just like, hey, I'm not here to judge you, whatever you need. But make sure you're not getting kinds that are too big for you. I know plenty of dudes who have this like chip on their shoulder that they got to get the extra large ones when they do not need those, and those condoms are a little blousy. And they're not supposed to be blousy. They're supposed to fit you nice and snug so that they stay on while penetrating, right? That's the whole point, so that they don't come off. And if they're blousy, they're going to come off. And then at that point, there was no point in wearing it if it comes off. Kind of last thing that I want to address here before we move into the actual podcast episode is that condoms are not 100% effective against STIs and pregnancy. And you might be listening to this whole thing and thinking, well, if it's not effective, then why would I even wear it in the first place? True. That might be something you might be thinking. It's not 100% effective in the same way that Lysol doesn't kill 100% of bacteria when you spray it. There's still going to be bacteria. There's still a possibility that you could get an STI or have a pregnancy result from using a condom. It's an effectiveness that is meant to protect you. I guess in the same way that, like, more in line of you could wear a oven mitt while pulling out something from the oven, but there's a chance that heat is so strong that it burns you. There's a small slight risk of any PPE hurting you. There's always that risk, I should say, of PPE not working the way that it's supposed to. So condoms are meant to be a stopgap between any complications that you might not be ready for or that could affect you long term, but that doesn't mean that it's going to work 100% of the time. There's always a risk. And that's just life. That's just reality. And so the idea and the goal would be when you are ready, you feel comfortable with someone, you feel at a good place with them, you feel like you really trust them, and you've had conversations about your own sexual health and your boundaries, and if you've been sleeping with anybody else, if you're going to continue sleeping with anybody else, what your preferences are and what those boundaries are with that condom use and how you would like to breach that, right? That would be the expectation. So I'm going to wrap it up here, condom pun, and I just want to end by saying be safe, be smart, talk to your partners, have communication. Don't expect that communication's going to happen. You have to engage. You have to start that ball rolling. You have to start those two balls rolling if you want to make sure that you're both on the same page about condom use. And be smart. Have fun. That's the important thing, is have fun. And if someone is not willing to respect your boundaries about sex and sexuality, protection, they're not worth your time. And for those out there who believe that you do not need condoms ever and that it's like against your personal identity to use a condom, I say with love and light, I think that's moronic. And I think it's borderline dangerous. And it is borderline irresponsible to refuse outright to use condoms. Because even things like doxypep is not 100% effective. And even PrEP, it's not 100% effective. And some people think like, oh, I'm going to go condomless, but I use PrEP and doxypep, and so I'm fine. But it is extremely irresponsible to continue with that mindset and to promote that as if that should be the standard, because a condom is really not that big of a deal. If that's a game changer for you and you will not have sex with anybody unless they are willing to go bare with you, I think that is a really dangerous mindset to have, because there are a lot of young people out there, a lot of inexperienced people who don't know any better, will continue with that practice and will eventually infect someone who's not ready to deal with that, who's not ready to come out, who's not ready to get outed, who's not ready to deal with the ramifications of getting treatment, or who just doesn't have the means to do so. And you're putting those people at risk. And if you think, well, I don't care about those people, I don't care what happens to them, I'm just trying to get my nut and go, then that is a problem. And that is a red flag for someone like me, who is very a big proponent of sexual health, of sexual openness, of sex positivity. Sex positivity, but we gotta be smart. As a community, we have to be smart. And we have to think big picture, not just, oh, I'm trying to come and then move along. We gotta be thinking about the people that we're having sex with. And again, there are a lot of people out there who are not able to deal with the consequences of getting an STI, of a UTI. And we have to do our best to look out for those people and be socially responsible with them. With that, let's jump into the podcast episode. And for those of you who are watching here on YouTube, feel free to check that out. The links are down below, and we'll be doing this probably every single week. But without further ado, let's jump on in.